I want to talk Guardians for 1 sec for this 5-minute topic. It's brought to us by Malley's. All you need is love and chocolate this Valentine's Day. Be ready to say those 3 little words. I got Malley's, from friendship to love to every situationship in between. Malley's has the perfect chocolate to say what you feel. Their famous chocolate-covered strawberries and grapes are back in stores on February 13th and 14th, and the rest of their Valentine's Day favorites like the Gold Cup assortments, milk and dark chocolate hearts, peanut butter, caramel, raspberry, and marshmallow-filled hearts, and so much more. Well, they're all in stores and online now. This Valentine's Day, say with me, guys, it's better with Malley's. Bull, yesterday, the Cincinnati Reds agreed to a 1-year deal with Eugenio Suarez for $15 million. And you put in the group chat, this is a guy that, for that deal, made a lot of sense for Cleveland. Just curious, why don't you think, with this particular kind of deal, that is something that the Guardians maybe, and we didn't just hear about it, but aren't able to pull off this summer?
So frustrating.
The disgust.
You know, and there are some fans. I was going at it with one fan yesterday, big Guardians guy, and he's defending the team. I love the Guardians, man. I want them to win so bad. I think their front office really is great, despite the fact that I've been very critical of them the last couple of years. They know what they're doing. They are completely hamstrung by an owner who, they have the lowest payroll in all of baseball right now. Below the Marlins, below the Athletics, below the White Sox, who are going to lose 100, below the Rockies, who could lose every game this year.
They got Paul DeBedesta. They fine.
I don't understand. And then yesterday, the Mariners, traded for Brendan Donovan. Like, that's another guy. Those are 2 guys. I get it. Suarez is not a perfect fit position-wise because you'd have to DH him. But the guy had 49 home runs last year. There's flaws in his game. He's getting old. Maybe this is the year he goes off a cliff. I don't know. He's getting old. He's not a good defensive player. He doesn't hit for a good average. He doesn't get on base a ton. But this team needs some power. It was a 1-year, $15 million contract. You would have had to offer him more because he's been in Cincinnati before. And apparently, the Pirates actually offered him the same. And by the way, the Guardians payroll lower than the Pirates.
That's kind of crazy.
Apparently, the Pirates offered him a similar deal. So maybe you would have had to offer him $20 million. He wanted to go to a hitter's park. All right, Cleveland's a neutral to hitter's park. Cincinnati's a really good hitter's park. So maybe he would have taken it anyway.
We just want to see them in on deals.
And he's not, like, they've been in on anybody. So he claims, guys didn't want to come here maybe because of less playing time. I understand young players. I think Chase DeLauder, if he stays healthy, is going to be great. I think Kyle Manzardo could be an all-star this year. There's some really good young players. But there's room, obviously, for a proven hitter. Brendan Donovan might have been even a worse ball drop here. Brendan Donovan got traded to the Mariners as part of a 3-team deal. Now, he doesn't have the power that Eugenio Suarez does, but he's under team control for a couple of years at a reasonable. I don't know what his salary is, but it's not that high. He's much better at getting on base. He would have been better for the Guardians in terms of position flexibility because he can play the outfield. He can play really anything. Probably, and he hasn't played every position in the majors, but he could probably play every position if you needed him to. And the Mariners gave up. It was a 3-team trade, so they gave up like 3 good prospects, but they didn't give up their best prospects. You wouldn't have had to trade Chase DeLauder. You would have maybe had to trade like Tugboat down in the minors, or
Matt Wilkinson,
like lower tier, like decent, good prospects, but not your best. And like Brandon Donovan would have been like a great fit. I don't understand. Again, the Guardians are going to be competitive. Last year, they pulled off a miracle at the end of the season. For some fans, it's just like, well, they go to the playoffs every year. What are you complaining about? I want more. And yes, if the Guardians spend an extra $50 million, they spend an extra $100 million. It's not going to guarantee them a World Series. It's baseball. It's tricky. The better team doesn't always win in the playoffs. Certainly the higher payroll doesn't always win. For all the talk of the Dodgers, the Mets haven't won squat with a huge payroll. The Yankees haven't won in forever with a huge payroll. So it doesn't guarantee anything. But, like, you've had this good team. You got to supplement sometimes. And to just, you said, Chris Antonelli at the end of the year last year said, the offense is not good enough. And they've done nothing to address it. Zero. Literally. They are running it back with the exact same players, except Lane Thomas is gone. They have added nobody. Not a single offensive player have they added.
That's why anytime that happens, it tends to be a disaster. Every time you just run it back and don't make a change, it tends to be a disaster. So.
They deserve credit. They played great in September. But they did not, outside of September, they had a bad season. It was a perfect storm. They played great for a month, and the Tigers played horribly bad. That's not going to happen 2 years in a row.
I think.
Now, the one thing I'll say is nobody in this division feels like they're trying to win. The Twins have cut payroll. The White Sox are actually trying to get better, but they're so bad, they got a long way to go. But they're the only team spending any money. The Royals are, they are what they are. They're okay. The Tigers were good last year. They're pretty good, but like they didn't do anything. They didn't really do anything to get better. And they got to win now because Tarek Skubal's going to be gone soon.
Remember, I asked you this question last week. I said, man, do you feel like because the Guardians, A, are in Cleveland, B, the division they're in, and C, just the nature of baseball, it's almost like they get a built-in pass, so to speak, because they do operate at a higher level or better than the other two teams, and they don't have a lot of the headaches, and they perform better with less. So what happens is anytime that you think that you want to give them some pushback or be upset at them,
which I did last year,
right? You feel bad about it because you're like, well, I mean, they don't have the same thing as the Browns. They're not wasting money.
Yeah.
They get smart guys and they get the best out of players they do have. You almost are guarded against saying anything against them because you feel like, well, they're doing the best that they can. But if they just did a little bit more above bare minimum, where could you put yourself?
I know, and this in particular, this offseason, it's egregious. Nobody's expecting them to have the highest payroll in baseball, but it shouldn't be unreasonable for them to at least be close to the middle of the pack. For them to be last in payroll is inexcusable.
I feel like they gave, and I didn't want to say it at the time because I don't want to feel like I was just, hating on the move because, there's a lot of people in Cleveland that, Jose is locked up long term. But I had a sneaking suspicion, and I hope it don't turn out to be this way, but it feels like they hedged their bet and knew they weren't going to spend no money and say, we're going to give y'all a Christmas present right now.
Yeah, I love that move, but it doesn't take them off the hook for doing nothing else.
I felt like they made that move so they can say, hey guys, we did something.
Right. And that was part of it. I mean, it's still a good move on its own.
Yes.
But they haven't done anything to get better. They've added a couple of low-price relief pitchers, and I think they've spent like $7-8 million on relief pitchers. That's all they've done. And they re-signed Austin Hedges.
What other businesses? Is they really broke like that? Like,
no, no way.
They're operating
cash poor.
What's particularly frustrating is that a lot of the teams that don't spend have spent this year. Like the A's have spent a little, the Marlins, the White Sox, the Pirates. The Reds, and the Reds are kind of similar boat as the Guardians. They made the playoffs on the last day, basically like the Guardians did, end of the season. They're in a division that's not as good either, although obviously the Cubs spent a lot more money than any of the teams in the AL Central do. But it's a better division because Milwaukee, and they're they don't spend big money, but they went and said, hey, we need one more bat. Let's go spend some money on Suarez. It's a one-year deal.
That's crazy.
And it doesn't have to be Suarez, but, there were guys you could have gotten. Even Austin Hayes, he went to the White Sox for, and he's not great, but he kills left-handed pitching. You could have at least signed him for $8 million or whatever he got from the White Sox.
What's the dude last year you wanted them to get? Gleyber Torres.
Yeah.
How did he finish the season?
He had a good year. He was an all-star.
Only way I see that them getting out of this is they got to pull the old school Indians. They got to DeLauder and Manzardo.
Well, that's the hope now. That's it. Unless they're going to make a trade.
They got to all turn into all-stars at
That's the hope. That DeLauder,
Valera,
Manzardo,
Kayfis.
and who just Pizzana. That those guys all become all-stars.
And if they all become all-stars, we'll be like, oh great.
Yeah, right.
Listen, we'll be like,
I just don't understand why if they can't spend any money, if ownership is not letting them spend, which is sure is the case, why won't they make a trade? That's the frustrating thing. Like I'd love to know why they didn't want Brandon Donovan. Like why they couldn't have made an equivalent trade to what they did there.
Because I feel like they think those as lottery tickets.
Yeah.
They feel like their prospects is lottery tickets.
I get not wanting to trade DeLauder and Bazzana. But any of the other guys, I'm trading them in the right deal if I can get a proven major league hitter. But so far they haven't been willing to do it. There's still some time.
How's the prospects list been? Remember you showed the prospects from the Guardians?
Yeah, it was terrible. It's been terrible if you look from 5 years ago.